And let's get started. I'm Lisa Hufford. I'm CEO founder of Simplicity Consulting, going on 15 years, based in the Seattle, Washington area. I'm so excited today to be able to talk to you about this playbook and the foundation of really what makes a great consultant. This is what I've been teaching now for 15 years, thousands of professionals. Nothing makes me happier than helping people realize success on their terms. And that's really the name of this book, Work Your Way. So what I've finally done is with the pandemic last year, I said, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to write down what I think, I've been teaching for many years now, and I know it works. And so the book is coming out in August. So if you want to hit Amazon, you can pre-order it after this. This playbook takes you through the second part of the book. So there's 3 parts in the book. So today we're going to specifically focus on what I call the foundation. It's about building your personal brand, defining the work that fits your life, and mastering the art of the rate. These are all very big questions. These are very big topics. I could spend an hour on each of these. So we're going to gloss over each of these areas that really contribute to you being a successful consultant. So whether you have been a consultant for many years, whether you're thinking about consulting as a career and really want to understand what it could look like for you, these are the elements, these are the core elements to really come back to time and time again. And what I'm hoping you walk out of here today after this hour with me is some ideas of takeaways, some key takeaways for you. Maybe it's around, gosh, I got to go work on my brand a little more. Maybe it's about thinking a little bit more about the work you want to do, how you want to do it. And maybe it's about your rate, some research to do. There could be a whole bunch of different questions that pop up. I don't want to overwhelm you, but I am hoping that you're going to walk away with whatever that is for you that's just going to help you take that next step to really identify if consulting's an option for you. I really wrote the book for corporate professionals who are thinking about making a transition. That's really my personal area of expertise. That's what I did. After 14 years in corporate, I transitioned, and I've helped, as I mentioned, thousands of professionals do the same. If you're a freelancer or you're a college grad, there definitely are elements of things that are going to be helpful, but my target audience is professionals that have work experience, have an expertise, and are really trying to figure out, how do I package this up? How do I really think about the work I want to do? And how does this consulting thing work, right? So those are the big things, the big questions I get all the time, still get them all the time from people out there. And I wrote the book really because it's about you recognizing you have more options than ever before. There's so many choices, especially now with the pandemic, which has accelerated choices for talent. You can choose to work as a traditional full-time employee. Nothing wrong with that. And there's this whole other category of consulting. It could be freelance on your own. It could be through agencies. It could be through consultancies, specialized consultancy, like what we do at Simplicity around marketing and project management, if that's your background. There's a whole variety, there's a whole world out there of different options now, and really Work Your Way is the path to help you identify what it is you love to do, what you want to do now at this next pivot in your career. And it's really also to help you realize that consulting is a viable career option and that you have everything you need to make it happen. So I'm going to tell you how to get there. And we're going to start right now talking about your personal brand. So this Build Your Personal Brand section in the book is my longest chapter. And it's because it's the thing I talk about the most. As Oscar Wilde has said, be yourself, everyone else is already taken. What I know for sure is that each and every one of us has unique gifts and talents. And it really is about each of us taking that time to identify what are our strengths, what are our passions, how do we want to present ourselves to the world? And this can change over time, right? We're people, we're always evolving, we're learning new things, we're having new experiences. So when you think about your personal brand, I want you to think about a few things as it relates to kind of where you've been and of everything you've done. I do with many people who have maybe 15, 20 years of experience. So if that's you and you're kind of like, gosh, I've done it all. How do I really get clear and really go out to the market in a clear way? These 5 questions will really help you identify how you want to represent your personal brand to the market. And really, your personal brand is a representation, not only of your strengths and your passions, but it's the evidence and that's the support of what you have done and how you want to do more of it. So let's walk through some of these questions at a high level. And I will say, if you want to spend more time on personal brand, I have a video on the Simplicity Consulting YouTube channel I did in January, which is 30 minutes of just this workshop in a little more detail. So if you're feeling like you want to go deeper than what I'm going to do right now, take a look at that video, and I go through these 5 questions in a lot more detail. So here we go. Let's start out with the first question, which is about being aware. So I want you to think about who you admire and why. What are those attributes of people who you admire? And think about those attributes of people you admire, and are those words that maybe you want to use to represent yourself? The video is on YouTube, and if you go to YouTube and search for Simplicity Consulting, it should pop up and you'll see me there. It's a 30-minute personal brand workshop video. And we'll be sure to drop that link in the chat as well. If Madeline can find that, that'd be great. So for example, you might say, gosh, I really admire, for me, I really admire Oprah Winfrey. Why do I admire Oprah Winfrey? Well, one of her attributes is I believe she's very generous. I believe she's very authentic. So that's an example where I could sit back and say, I'm attracted to her and those attributes because those probably are attributes that I want to be known for. And if I want to say I'm authentic or generous, like I'm going to sit with that and say, are those words that really resonate with me? And if I went out to market with those, how would I really represent that as part of my brand? What's the evidence around that? And it's kind of like a North Star of how I want to live my life. Am I in alignment with showing up in this way? So think about those words. It could be any words that resonate with you. The most important is that you feel really connected to that word, whether it's creative or organized or visionary or the doer, whatever it is for you. It could be a whole host of different things. The most important thing is thinking about words that really reflect who you are. I call them your authentic words. And that's kind of the start when you think about really building out a strong personal brand, is words that you really connect with. And then you can build your stories of your evidence around them. And that's a really nice way to craft a very compelling personal brand that you can share on LinkedIn, on your resume, when you're in interviews or talking to people about the work that you want to do. You're really confident in who you are. So be unique is the second question. This is about all of what is effortless, what's effortless for me, and what am I the go-to person for? So these are what you stand out for. So we all should know by now, if you've been working for a while, what your strengths are. And if you're not sure what your strengths are, then go back and look at your previous reviews and go back and look at what other managers or clients have said about you in the past. Because what you might see is a trend. Most of us show up in the same way over and over again. I once had a consultant come to me and she said, I've always been a great writer. Everyone tells me I'm a great writer, but is that really that different? And I said, yeah, absolutely. It's so easy for you. You've completely overlooked it as a unique differentiator. So oftentimes the things that make us unique are those things that feel so obvious to us, so easy for us to do. Think about this as like if you could just get up and do whatever the work is, and what is that? And oftentimes those are your greatest strength, and that's an indicator of something you want to do more of. So take a moment to really think about that. Okay, now we're going to move into being confident. So confident is really about telling your professional success stories. This is a really important exercise I'm going to encourage you to spend more time on after, because if you can come up with 3 stories, really short stories, and these are the evidence around kind of the words, we talked about your personal brand words, that really helps build your confidence. So think of right now for this exercise, just think about one time. Think about one story, one time where you are on top of the world, where you felt like you really nailed it, you really had a lot of success at work. Everybody has at least one success story, many success stories, but just think about the one that just jumps to your mind. And I want you to take time to really write it down, put yourself back in that time, really think about what you were doing, what were those attributes. And what I experienced when I've taught this workshop for many times over the years is when people do this, they'd forgotten about it. They forgot about their greatness. They forgot that they had this success. And not only is it a great confidence booster, it reminds you of what you like. So you can ask yourself, God, I really enjoyed that. Do I want to do more of that kind of work? And then that informs your personal brand. So you should really tell the stories of what you want more of. So thinking about what you've done, but also translating it to what you want to do more of. So if you've been a really strong project manager, for example, and you love creating order out of chaos, we hear that a lot with great project managers, give some examples and some stories of how you've done that, how you've come into messy situations, what your methodology is for cleaning them up and getting them on track, what were the ultimate business results. And now, and you could put a lot of, different kinds of personal brand words around that. That's a great story. And when you can deliver that with confidence, it not only shows the client or the hiring manager kind of who you are, but it really helps you be in that place of confidence as to the value you can deliver. And that's really what you want to convey as a consultant, is the value you can deliver to clients. The fourth question is about be teachable. This is an area where you want to build your skills. We all know learning is on us now, and we get to choose our own path. And there's so many great tools, especially with the pandemic. Now, oh my gosh, everything's online. I've kind of gotten re-engaged with LinkedIn Learning. For those of you that have that ability or the premium membership, oh my gosh, what an amazing resource. Thousands of videos, very professional on any topic you can imagine. If you want to learn social media, if you want to learn SEO, if you want to learn how to code, project management, even communication skills, presentation skills, take a look. I'm a big fan of LinkedIn Learning. There's many others too. But what is it that you want to build your skill in and that you're taking initiative? So if you're super passionate about social media, for example, what are you doing yourself? Are you reaching out to find mentors on social media? Are you taking trainings? Are you listening to podcasts? Are you reading books? Are you going to virtual conferences? There's lots of ways to build your skills. And when you're a consultant, it's really important to invest in yourself and to continue to grow your expertise. Because you are a master of your skill. That's why clients are hiring you. So you want to make sure that you're continuing to make those investments. So thinking about what that one thing is for yourself that you really want to do, and put it down and put it on your calendar and do it. And last but not least, be kind. This is about being kind to yourself. Because oftentimes when we're creating a really powerful personal brand, which each of you have, and we're articulating it to the world, we can all have those little voices in our head pop up, maybe that aren't so helpful around things like things you might hear like, this, who are you to really think this? That's not really who you are. No one's going to hire you, whatever. We all have these voices that might kind of hold us back from really stepping into our true personal brand. And so this is just about gaining awareness that you don't have to listen to those voices. We all have them. And that back to your professional success stories, go read those success stories. If this is an area for you that you really want to work on around building your confidence, practice saying your success stories in the mirror. Practice them with people that know you, because the more you remind yourself about your greatness, the more you're going to be confident, and you're going to kind of overcome all the negative self-talk that actually might hold you back from stepping into what you can do. So what I know for sure after talking to thousands of people over the years is we all have greatness. We really do. And it really is up to us to be able to articulate us. And we're the only ones holding ourselves back. So don't hold yourself back. The world needs your greatness. And that's really that's really about what your personal brand is about. Okay, I talked a little bit about authentic words, and this is what I call your personal brand statement. So it's not like an elevator pitch. For those of you that are familiar with that term, I'm not a big fan of it. I feel like that's rehearsed and it can be like robotic. This is more about having some words, I'd say about 3 words at the most, because really, it's hard for us to remember more than 3, and 3 words that really resonate, and then your 3 stories. And this is really around your what and your why at a high level. What am I? This is your title. And this is mostly when people say, hey, what do you do for a living? You might say, I'm a strategic marketing consultant. I'm a project manager. I might say I'm a CEO, but okay, that's the what, but why? I think people really want to know, what's your motivation? Why do you do what you do? So, for me, I love helping people, and that shows up in a whole bunch of different ways. I happen to run a company, but I also help women entrepreneurs. I'm super passionate about that. So when I think about helping people and helping people find success, especially at work, that's why I run a company, right? So you could even swap those and lead with your why. So what is your why? Really think about that. For many people, it's about giving back. It's about making a difference. It's about helping other people be successful. It's about feeling like they're valuable, just feeling like their contribution, it matters in the world. Some people love doing really big, bold things. Some people just love, like we talked about, creating the order out of chaos. So think about what this why is for you. That's the most important part of this. And then ask yourself, well, what about that really motivates me? And just keep asking yourself that to get to the core of your why. And when you get to the core of the why, that just helps you really articulate that in a really powerful way, and shares with people like who you are. You know, be who you are, and finding those people that really appreciate what you have to offer. There's nothing better than having a client, right, that really connects with you and appreciates not only what you do and your expertise, but really your motivation. And when you can find that match, it's like, it's awesome. Everybody wins. So that is a very quick overview on personal brand, but hopefully you walked away with a couple things for you to think about. Some reflection questions are, what are your authentic words? What's your personal brand statement? And what are your professional success stories? So there's a whole bunch of things we covered in there, but think about some takeaways for you on that one. And then we're going to move on to define the work that fits your life. Okay. Well, I'm just reading your chat for just a moment here, because I just realized you guys are giving me all kinds of tips. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm a little slow on the uptake here. All right, is that better? Can you guys see that better? Okay, click. I just pinched it. So thank you. Okay, sorry about that. Thanks for bearing with us on my Zoom learning curves here. All right, let me just make sure. Any questions? If there's anything about personal brand, just drop it in the chat. I saw Madeline put in there the link to the personal brand webinar I did in January. Check that out if you want to do more of. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to talking about defining the work that fits your life. Okay, boy, this is the topic right now, right, with the pandemic. I mean, who hasn't been thinking about options in careers? I think everyone. And this trend seems to be accelerating, especially as I think hopefully we're coming out of this pandemic here. So as Steve Jobs says, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. And I just love that, because I have always believed that the world's such a big place. There's so many opportunities. If you're not happy, then it's really on each of us to figure out what that next path is, because there is a place for you. I believe there's a place for all of us that really appreciates our skills and our talents and really can deliver fulfillment. So when you think about what's the ideal work that will fit your life, there are so many factors. This one, right, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So I'm going to run through these and maybe make some notes of whatever for you feels the most resonant. So around projects, when you think about the focus area, is there an expertise that you want to be known for? You know, I talked a little bit about social media. I talked about SEO. There's also a whole technical field, you know, or there's finance. There's so many areas when you're a professional that of expertise that you have accumulated through your life. You get to choose what it is you really want to hone in on. And to be a consultant, one of the most important things is to really specialize. Many people have such a hard time with this one because we've all been grown up and taught to be generalists. And there's nothing wrong with being a generalist, but it's harder to stand out and be known for something if you're kind of everything to everyone. And if you want to be a really successful consultant, it's okay to know that you've done it all, but it's really important to spend some time thinking about where it is you want to focus now. What is it that really motivates you? And this could be in a lot of different ways. This could be around an expertise. This could also be around industry expertise. Maybe you have healthcare industry or high tech or any kind of industry experience. That is a niche that you could definitely go after. We talked about specific expertise around that. It could be around location. You could also have other passions around supporting millennials, or for a lot of coaches, they have specific expertise around helping women leaders or C-suite or up-and-coming managers. You could just narrow in. So you see, if you create a brand, whatever it is, that's a little more targeted, then that allows you to stand out. So I'm going to encourage you to really get more narrow than maybe you might feel comfortable with. Some people feel really uncomfortable being narrow, but I'm going to tell you, this is absolutely the secret to successful consultants. Now, when you get projects, it doesn't mean to say you can't do other things or you can't change your brand. I mean, over time, I've seen many successful consultants start in one area, like one I'm thinking that's been with me for 14 years. She started out in brand marketing, and then she involved like communications, and then she executive communications and project management. And it all kind of was in the marketing spectrum, but as she had different experiences, she was able to kind of navigate her brand, right? But she's always very intentional, like right now. And I always think about this like a two-year view, right? What do you really want to do for the next couple of years? What's really exciting about that? Strategic or tactical? So this is another big conversation I have with people who are transitioning from corporate, who might have had very senior roles and run big teams, been very strategic. You can absolutely do strategic work. And there's also the blend of tactical, which is the doing the work. So if you're out there wanting to do strategy work, then that's a really specific area, and really thinking about what kind of strategy. Is it business strategy, marketing strategy, technical strategy? There's so many different strategy elements. Those projects tend to be shorter, while they might bill more. Those probably might tend to come from your network, unless you work for like a strategic consulting company. We also, at Simplicity, we talk about a consultant as a strategic doer. And this is another blend. If this fits you, and this fits a lot of people, that kind of title around, you can do the strategy, but you really enjoy rolling up your sleeves and doing the work. If that's you, then that term might resonate with you, thinking of a strategic doer. You know, oftentimes when we work with clients, they really want people to come in and do the work, but they want someone who knows the strategy element, because when they're in it, as you well know, you are building strategy. Even though the project might not be defined as strategic, there are absolutely strategic elements. So thinking about blending that strategic doer quality, if that's who you are, that tends to be a sweet spot that we see in the market. Tools. Oh my gosh, there's so many tools now. Every day there's more new tools coming on the market. You can go, if you want to learn a tool like Adobe, specifically some of their tools. I think about Marketo, some of the hotter technologies. There are clients that want specific expertise around tools. So you could go invest in yourself, you become an expert in these tools, and you could just be that, like WordPress developers, right? We see those all the time. So you could absolutely become an expert around tools, and you could differentiate yourself in that way. Familiarity. This is if you want to work with a team, company, or industry that's familiar with you. You know, we work with a lot of people that come from Microsoft. I've come from Microsoft, so you know, we know the kind of the culture, we know how things work. So there's a lot of people that are very comfortable back in that environment. Many other companies, we find the same thing. Or do you want to do something totally different? Some people are like, I just want to go to a startup. I want to have a whole different experience. And that's really where wearing a lot of different hats would play probably more than a big corporate. And specializing, if you're thinking about startup, then definitely more kind of the jack of all trades tends to fit well more in that world. And thinking about teams, this is really important. When you think about team dynamics, do you want to work independently? Do you want to work with a highly collaborative team? Some people get so much satisfaction around their team members, and it really is their community, and they love not only working with them, but even socializing with them. Some people are fine to work with people, but they really don't want to have that tightly of an integrated team. They just want to come do the work. They want to have a great relationship and add value. So for you, what does that look like? And making sure when you're talking to clients, you're understanding what the expectation is for you and how to integrate with the team, and that's going to work for you as well. Access. How important is it for you to get access to team and leadership during a project? What level do you need? This is very important for strategic consultants. If you're coming in to build a strategy, and one of my first projects was building out a whole new sales channel strategy at Microsoft, and a VP hired me, and I absolutely needed his access. If I didn't have his access and his support, I'm dead in the water. My project wouldn't have gone anywhere. So if you're brought in to do something very strategic, making sure that you have the right leadership that can really support you, and also the impact. Do you care Do you care the project fits into the company's greater mission and vision? Do you want to work on projects that directly ladder up to business priorities? Or are you building content sites for kind of the art's sake of it? So what kind of impact do you want to have? There's some people are like, I really want a big impact. Like I want to create that sales channel. Some people are like, I just want to do a great project. I want to do great work. I want to manage a project that's important. And so what is your level of impact? How much do you care about that? And purpose. So for many people, purpose or social responsibility is extremely important. And they look for employers that really care about social responsibility. I think about like Patagonia, a brand, or an REI. Some people are really passionate about running to sport. Some people aren't as passionate about that, and that's just not something that they're interested in. So for you, what is it that really aligns with your core values and your world view? And that's another way to think about work, ideal work for you. Also, some additional considerations that many of you may have already for those of you that are out there as 1099s or W-2 employees, this is always a big conversation because I always say, like, there's no one right way. They're both very different and it's very personal. So at a high level, subcontractors at 1099 means you're your own business owner. You're not just a consultant. And the good news on that is you're in charge, and the bad news is that you're in charge. So you assume all the risk and responsibility for everything: your taxes, your finances, your operations, your contracts, your legal, your business development, deployment, customer experience, success. You guys know this, for those of you that have been 1099s. And what I hear from many 1099s, that they love getting out there, and then they kind of have to hunt, do the work, and then hunt and do the work, and it can be exhausting, and managing the back office. Some people love that, and so it's back to knowing who you are and how you want to work. Some subcontractors come together so they can support each other. W-2 employee means you work for a company and they're managing all the back office for you, right? And then you also might get some benefits, and you might also get a community. It's something at Simplicity over the years, like we started out with just placing 1099s, but this was probably about 12 years ago now, pretty early on, we had several people say, what, really, benefits are really important to me, and 401k is really important to me. And so we said, all right, well, we're going to transition to mostly being employee-based and offer these benefits. And we give people choices, but what we find is most consultants really appreciate doing the work they love on a project basis, but having that stability of an employer and all the benefits. So, that's our model and how we chose. But, again, what is it for you? If you don't need the benefits, then you can be a 1099. That's usually the biggest indicator, is that health benefits piece, because it's such an important one. Full-time or part-time, this is another one people kind of wrestle with. Short-term, long-term, you get to choose. You can have multiple projects. I see many consultants do this. They might have 3 to 5 clients and they love the variety. Some are like, just give me one client, one full-time project. I just want to focus. Some people have a lot going on in their lives, especially right now. We see this with a lot with working women trying to juggle it all in the pandemic. So they might have part-time or 20 to 30 hour weeks, so they can manage that because they've got other responsibilities, and that's their choice right now. And then when they have more bandwidth, they can take on more. So, but the most important thing about being a consultant is just knowing where you are, and that you have that ultimate flexibility to go up and down. But you can create work, you can create projects really however you want. Remote or on-site? Well, this one's a little bit irrelevant right now with the pandemic because we're all still remote, but slowly as we come back to work, thinking about, for you, I think what's the most important? I've seen consultants be 100% remote. I've seen consultants do a combination. I've seen some consultants, before the pandemic, see their client every day. This is about what works best for you. Create your ideal schedule and recommend it to the client. Most of the time, the client will just say, fine, that's great. That's however you want to work, they'll most likely approve it as long as you're delivering results. You could work independently, direct. You could also work through what I call intermediaries. These are firms, agencies, consultancies that work with other companies. So for example, at Simplicity Consulting, we're an approved supplier at Microsoft and T-Mobile and Salesforce and all these big companies, because it's really hard just to go direct if you're an independent with these large organizations. They have tremendous overhead and expectations of their supplier community, from the insurance that they require to GDPR details to laptop programs, audit requirements. I mean, the list is endless that these large corporations require firms that work and suppliers that work for them. So if you're an independent, it's really, really difficult, and I don't think you'd want to take on that risk to go direct. So you work through an intermediary. So finding that right intermediary for you. However, on the other flip side, if you're working with smaller companies or even mid-market that don't have all that infrastructure, you're going to go direct, and most likely you're going to build 1099 with them. And so those are the differences when you think about kind of independent intermediary. You can still be a 1099 working through an intermediary as well. Again, there's so many different kinds of companies out there. So it's really about kind of asking around where the right one, making sure you find the right one that fits your needs. So when you think about your ideal client profile, what are the values of your ideal client, making sure that you're in alignment to those? What companies do you admire and you want to support? This is a really great question right now, because many people, while you have whatever your skill is, you can do that anywhere. So if you could create your ideal company that you want to work for, is it a big company? Is it a smaller company, mid-size? Is it a specific industry? Is it doing something that you're really connected to in the world? And you start there, because then you're going to be excited, right, to add your value and your expertise to that organization that you're really aligned with from a value perspective. And this is also about the size of the company. That's really important. You know, I've seen a lot of people come from corporate and think they can do startup, or they're excited about the possibility, but they're really different worlds. And many people, it's difficult to make that transition, and vice versa, from a startup to a large organization. You know, and again, not that one's better or worse, they're just really different worlds. So know yourself, talk to people who work in these environments if you haven't worked in those environments, and just make sure that you're comfortable with the differences between these different company sizes. So think about your network. You know, who knows you about your skills? We all have a fan club. I talk a lot about this in the book. What I've definitely seen over the years is we all have people who have seen our work, that know our work, that would either hire us or recommend us. And it doesn't have to be a very big list. It could just be a few people. That's all you need. You just need one person to hire you at a time. So think about your fans. Think about people that you know that you're like, huh, they're kind of doing interesting things. And I wonder, and it'd be fun to work with them. You know, so who's your fan club? Who's doing work that's interesting to you, that you really want to do, and who respects you and has similar values? You know, one of my first projects when I first transitioned to consulting was working right back at Microsoft with the team I worked in. I worked in the OEM division. It's because I worked there 7 years. I knew the workings really well. I knew the people, but it was a really different role. And what I found is it was really helpful, because it made that transition to consulting a little easier, because I knew some of the things, but I still had to figure a lot of things out, like my rate, which we're going to talk about next. Like, how do I really think about value and scoping my work to deliver value in a way? But this piece around working with people who knew me already was, I didn't know it at the time, but I've seen this also with a lot of people. It was really valuable, because it just helps that transition period of someone who already kind of gets what you can do for them, and allows you to make that transition a little bit easier. Okay, before we move in the bonus exercise, I'm just gonna take a quick look in the chat. Sorry, my video is freezing. I don't know why that is. We're gonna replay this again. Okay, I don't see any questions yet. If you do have any questions on anything I talk about, feel free to just throw them in the chat. Okay, we're going to keep going. Bonus exercise. So this is a little tip, and it's a pretty powerful tip, I have to say, that came from one of my consultants that I write about in the book. And this is about identifying your ideal client list. And this is a consultant of ours who's been with me, gosh, I think over 12 years. And I didn't even know she did this until she shared it with me. And I thought, oh my God, this is brilliant. The world has to know this. And it's very simple. She creates 2 lists, an A list and a B list. And she's always updating it. And so as she's thinking about her projects and what her next project is, she goes back to this list. And so the A list is people that know her, that like her, that are really part of her personal fan club. They know her greatness, right? So it's like people she's really confident about. And then she has this B list of acquaintances, maybe new companies, new clients, and people that she's like, gosh, I think that person would be really cool to get to know, or they're doing something really interesting, and I might have had some exposure, but I don't really know them very well. So, and it doesn't mean to say she's going to contact any of them, but it's just keeping track of people. And so as sometimes, when her project's coming to an end, she'll go back and look at this list and kind of reframe, reassess where she is right now. What does she want to do more of? What are those people on her A-list doing? And then she reaches out personal emails to the A-list first and says, like, hey, I'm coming available. This is what I can do. This is what I just did and what I could do for you. Love to talk, whatever. And so that she said she's really never had to go to her B-list, because just by having her A-list constantly curated and just keeping in touch and adding value to people and letting them know what you're doing has helped her either get directly hired or they know someone that they'll refer her to. So this is part of kind of the business development side, right, of being a consultant, which for many consultants are very uncomfortable. I hear this from a lot of people. So if this is you, don't let this freak you out, because it's not as hard as it might seem. And again, these lists don't have to be very long. You just need one person to hire you at a time. So just thinking about the A and the B list. So hopefully that helps you. And then I love talking about planting seeds. So when you're out there talking to people, really having an attitude of gratitude to just share what you're doing. Hey, I'm available. And this is what she does, crafts that warm mail. Hey, I'm available. This is just what I've done. If you know anyone that's looking for work, just let me know. So if it's a friend that's on your A-list, it doesn't put you in that awkward position of like, I'm really looking for you to hire me, because that might put some people off. You could just say, hey, I'm looking for this kind of project work, and I just want to let you know in case you hear about anything. And you just plant a seed. That's planting a seed. You're just letting people know, and then just don't hold on to any expectation of it. That's one thing, you can't control is when the work's going to come to you. But what you can control is planting a lot of seeds when you're in the market for really thinking about work. And this is where your personal brand is really important, because it's more than just saying like, I'm looking for a project, or I'm looking for consulting. Add your area of expertise, add what you want to do. If you're a project manager, right? Say, I'm looking for a 30-hour-a-week project management role. I did this work in a channel organization, and I'm really looking forward to adding this value, whatever that result was, into a new project. In a really crisp way. Now, when the listener will go, okay, PM, just in case I hear of any PM work, channel, I'll be thinking of you, right? So it's a little more targeted than just anything. Because if you start getting referrals of things that doesn't match you, then that's kind of just a waste of your time and can be quite, just defeating. Okay. Now, some reflection questions around that bonus exercise are building your dream project. So doing the work you love. What's your brand? What are your strengths and passions? However you love to do it. Part-time, full-time, remote, on-site, alone, through an intermediary, employee, subcontractor, so many things to consider. Think about that for yourself and for whom you like. What are the values of the ideal client that match your values? What are some companies you want to admire and support? So a lot of things, a lot of factors to think about when you think about your ideal project. Okay, so we're going to move on to the last part, which is all about the money, right? This is probably the most asked question over the years, like, how do I bill myself? Can I make a living? Is this consulting thing? It seems kind of, uncertain, and it can be, right? But we're going to talk about rates and what I call the art of the rate, because it's not a perfect science and it's always changing. It really truly is an art. Like an artist gets out a canvas and paints a canvas. Is what we're going to kind of do today, is talk about lots of factors around creating your ideal range and how you think about your rate right now. Okay, before I jump into this though, I just want to make sure, I just check in the chat here. I got a question about the example answers you're bringing up. Questions are helpful for generating ideas. Okay, good. Can you recommend sources, books, websites that have more example answers to these questions? It's helpful for me to see examples and say, I'm not like that, I'm more like this, defining through contrast. Yes, thank you for asking that question. And you're right. So I'm trying to throw in examples where I can, because you're right. Examples help so much to know this is how other people have done it. So I don't, you know what? I can't think of any. Well, by my book, I hate to say it, I hate to plug it, but it's true. So my book is basically a compilation of 14 of my actual consultant stories, which have a million examples of their stories, and they're all really different. That's kind of the whole point, is they all came to consulting in different ways and but they use a lot of the same strategies, and they're very successful. I tell their stories as well as my stories. So when the book comes out in August, pre-order that. You'll read a lot of examples. And you know what I'll do is I'll take away this question. Let me think about this some more. And we do the follow-up email. Let me think about some other examples, and maybe it's some follow-on videos or content as we're kind of moving up towards the launch of the book that we can provide. So that's great feedback. Thank you. Does it still work in times where GDPR is more important? According to the rules, you're not even allowed to just write and mail to someone without already having contractual relationship. So that's a really important point around reaching out and respecting a company's requirements, or they kind of put these limits. And you're right, they don't want, I'm assuming you might be talking about Microsoft here, but other large companies, they absolutely do not want, we do not solicit because it's a huge problem. This is really, when you think about your A-list and your B-list, thinking about your network and people that you are friendly with. So this isn't about sending out a big blast. Absolutely not. That does not work. People just delete you. They can tell it's just a big impersonal blast. I don't think anyone wants that. This is about a personally crafted reach out, whether it's email. You could also do it text or whatever your mode of communication is with those people. LinkedIn, use LinkedIn all day long. It's a great way to connect with people, or to reconnect with people. I've reconnected people I've been seeing in 20 years through LinkedIn. And in fact, now that I'm answering this question with you, I think that might be the best approach. And not just Microsoft, also others. Yep, this is a big company thing. I'm gonna say I think stick with LinkedIn because it's, you know, agnostic, and it really is the place for professionals. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. We have 15 minutes. This is great. Keep throwing some questions in there. Okay, mastering the art of the rate. Know yourself and know your worth. Okay, so let's dive into how to determine your rate. So when you think about your rate, there's several factors that go into this. One is your market value, and this is kind of a moving target, right? Because what's going on in the market and in different geographies absolutely impacts the rates that people pay. So while, you know, the data on the internet, we all know it's not perfect, it's helpful, it's a guide. So I use it often. I use a lot of resources. There's PayScale, Salary.com, Glassdoor, Indeed. If you just go into Bing or Google and type in, for example, marketing manager salary in Seattle, you're going to get a whole bunch of, you're going to get a lot of ranges, right? And so it's not perfect, but through that you can kind of get an idea, and then based on expertise, whether it's junior, whether it's senior, it's one data point that helps inform your overall strategy. Yes, this document is going to come in the email after this. So you're going to get this playbook, Hadi. Okay. So yes, it'll be it's a free download. So you absolutely will get this. That's why I'm running through it quick, because then you can have more time afterwards. So while it's not perfect, back to thinking about your looking around the market. It's one indicator. So you kind of pull in what's going on in the market, my local market, and kind of get an idea of like what people are paying. And I'm suggesting that even as a consultant, look at those roles at what people are paying as a full-time employee, because it gives you an indication of kind of where you could be comparably. Now, we're going to talk about this. A full-time employee salary is not the same as a consultant salary for many reasons, because as we know, when you get hired as a full-time employee, like for example, someone hires you for $100,000, we know that that company has to pay the employer taxes and has to pay your benefits, and if there's stock and all these the overhead, right, that go into carrying employees. So really what I call your fully burdened cost is somewhere north of 25 to 50% above your actual salary. So for example, if you said a marketing manager salary was like around $100,000, really the fully burdened cost might be more like around $150,000. Again, these are ranges, right, for this market. And that would be comparable to what you would call your bill rate as a consultant. So when I'm really talking to people who are out there really defining their bill rates in the market. So, okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So I'm gonna move on. Data points about your market value. So go ahead, write down some market value, and then we're gonna talk about your ideal pay, and then we're gonna get into bill rate. So just a moment, because I kind of went there with bill rate. You're gonna hear two terms in this world, right? Pay, your pay rate, and your bill rate. And now this is gonna get a little complicated, so I'm gonna try to streamline this, but it depends on if you're a 1099 subcontractor or your W-2 employee, because of all the taxes and the overhead, everything. Remember, if you're a 1099 subcontractor, you assume all of those things, right? So if you, for example, say my bill rate's $100 an hour, you've got to factor in all of your costs, okay? If you're a W-2 employee, then it's really more like that's that salary, right? You don't have to pay all those employer taxes and the benefits, it's really your salary. So when you think about your ideal pay, I like to think about a range. You've got your baseline, which is kind of the low end. This is kind of like, what do I need to live, right? I got my rent, my mortgage, my insurance, my payments, whatever costs you have, what is that? And then kind of your ceiling. This kind of goes into what you've learned about the market. Okay, well, what do I think the high end of what I can make right now with my skills could be? So let's say you're like, okay, I need $5,000 a month is low, $10,000 is high, or you could have a bigger range, whatever. This is an example, right? Now you have some guardrails when you think about work. So when work comes at you, you can immediately go, if it comes at you for, $2,000 a month, you're like, no, I just can't make that work unless I have a few of those projects, right? So now you kind of know if you can do this or not, if it's worthwhile. I'll tell you, I've seen a lot of consultants, they jump into consulting, they haven't really thought about this piece of it. And then in a few months, they realize they're not making as much as they need to live. And that's a very stressful situation for everybody. So take the time to make sure that the projects you're going to bring on are really going to cover your expenses. And also, if you're going to take on multiple projects, kind of learning about your ceiling. And I'll tell you, it takes about a year. If you're new to consulting, you're going to experiment a lot, and you're really building your brand. You're finding kind of your niche. So be patient with yourself. I experience this, and I see this with a lot of consultants. They kind of jump in, not really sure to build themselves out, and maybe sometimes they build themselves too low. But then they kind of they learn. You kind of learn your range, and it becomes a lot easier. So in the beginning, the skills can feel really overwhelming, but I guarantee it won't be as overwhelming once you kind of get into the consulting world. The other really important piece to think about with rate is the intangibles. And what do I mean by intangibles? It's everything but the money. And why does this matter so much is because I've talked to so many people over the years who are really choosing consulting in many ways for the intangibles. They're not choosing it for the money. They're not coming into it saying, I'm actually going to make more money. They might make about the same of what they made in their corporate job. Or maybe they're making a little less, but they're placing a premium on the intangibles, whether it's flexibility, whether it's being able to work remote, although we're all working remote right now, the people, having control over the work they do, choosing who they want to work with versus maybe working for a manager that they don't like. The opportunity to really hone their craft and just do the work they love and not have to deal with the bureaucracy and always having to kind of prove themselves and go for that next promotion. Many people get to a point in their career where that's not what's interesting to them. They just want to do the work they want to that they love to do, and they want to add value, and they don't really care about all the bureaucracy. So those are intangibles. And if that's you, to get to that point, like, what's your premium for that? So while, money is important and we all have to pay our bills, thinking about what are those intangibles for you and factoring that into the overall project value. So when you have a project opportunity in front of you, and maybe it's not as much money as you want, but maybe it's with a really great group. Like, I've seen some people come to us and say, I really want to get into gaming. I've got like great PM skills. I don't have gaming experience. But to me, I'm willing to take a project that might be a little lower so I can get gaming experience and Xbox experience on my resume. That's an example of an intangible, right? So it kind of depends on where you are. Again, it's a strategy. If it's not for you and you're like, I'm going to do my thing and going for the high end, go for it. But but you get to control how you think about the intangibles for you and what are those. So write down some of your intangibles. Think about your ideal pay range, your market value, your bill rate, your skills and expertise, And what are those intangibles that are really important to you? So again, that was a really high overview. This is, again, a very long chapter in the book with a lot more detail. We've got a few more minutes left for some questions. That is the main content. In summary, let your light shine. The world needs it, and so do you. This is really kind of my offering to you and my gift to let you know that each of you do have this gift. And it really is about uncovering that for yourself, because the world does need it. And for many of us that kind of step into this, even though it can feel scary, it's so satisfying, and it does kind of makes me feel good to do, what I love to do every day. And that's really what I hope to inspire and encourage every one of you to do for yourselves. Okay, so that is summary, just my bio, and that's it. I am redoing my website, lisahufford.com, so it's not up yet, but this playbook will be download there a bunch. There's gonna be a bunch of other resources. We're also gonna be building out more content on simplicityci.com. So you are like my first group here that I'm just starting to talk about the book with. So I'd actually love your feedback after this if you're like, hey, I like this, I didn't like that, because I wanna be able to do more of these to help people that are in transition. So connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to just hear your feedback. Super open to feedback. So I'm going to hang out here for the next 5 minutes or so. If anyone has any questions, throw them in the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for participating. And I'll just get to, you can drop off if you need to run. I totally get that. So, okay, a few questions in my Q&A. All right, let me jump to that. Okay, international consulting. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, Corey, so you want to do international consulting. So gosh, I wish I could see you. I'd have so many questions for you about this, because have you done it? Do you have expertise in it? Why do you want to do it? What is it you're hoping to gain? Sometimes working for a big, large global organization, even locally, like I'll just use Microsoft, since many of you might have come from the Microsoft, this is really in prep for the Microsoft Alumni Career Fair next week. Thinking about Microsoft in general has, what's cool about Microsoft and many global organizations is, even though you're like working in Redmond, many of our consultants work with people all over the world. So anyways, if there's more specific questions, let me know, but I have a lot of things with thinking about international consulting. And I would say look either for a firm that has international clients, or that's the main one, either a big, probably a larger firm, quite honestly, because to do global work really is quite complicated, or look for a large organization that is international, specifically groups that target international. For example, at Microsoft, the channel sales, or working with some of the subsidiaries. I had a consultant for a long time. She supported the Microsoft Canada finance team. So she got to work with Canada, even though she was here in Seattle. So that could be an example of looking for international opportunities within a large organization. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so question anonymous. Thanks for the webinar, including PDF, very helpful. Do you have any additional suggestions, resources, someone who's lost her job due to disability, specifically employment was terminated because he or she could not return within a few years of being on disability leave and now seeking a job to work again after some years of not working? Oh, I'm so glad you asked this. So yes, I have a whole lot of advice. So if you're someone who has been out of the workforce for a while, for whatever reason, whether it's a disability, there was so many working moms that just decided to go raise their family, God bless them, and now they're coming back in the workforce. So if you've had a gap in your experience, consulting is actually a really great option for you. So go back to all the things we talked about, to your personal brand, go back to thinking about the work you did before. And what I've observed over the years for many people that have come back after these large gaps is their confidence is really low, right? Because they're worried people are going to consider their gap a problem. And here's my advice. It's only a problem if you make it a problem. Look, if somebody doesn't want to hire you because you have a gap, then honestly, you don't want to work for that person probably. Because if you can articulate your skills and the results you delivered, even if it was 10 years ago, for many people, if you're in that place, look, these big companies haven't changed that much. They still need the same type of work in many ways. Now the tools have changed, how they work, but relationships haven't changed Your reputation hasn't changed. Your credibility hasn't changed. If people remember you in a positive light, go back and start reconnecting with those people that you used to work with. And really, and if you're struggling even to remember your greatness, remembering your professional success stories, go back and ask those people like, hey, what did we do? What did you think I did that was so great? You know, where did you think I really stood out? You know, I'm really reentering the workforce now, and I'm really trying to understand like where do I want to go next? And I'm trying to, you know, think about my successes. And I worked with you years ago. What did you think I was really good at? You never know what people are going to say to you. You don't have to take what they say, but it'd be interesting to learn and help build your brand and your confidence and credibility. So just be confident. Don't make a gap in your experience and issue, and especially with the pandemic. I don't think people are as worried about that. It's only a big deal if you make it a big deal. If you just focus on what you can deliver for that client, they're probably not going to even think twice about it. Remember, put your client hat on. When you're talking to a client or hiring manager, look, they're hiring because they have a need. They're probably overwhelmed with whatever the work is. And what they're really trying to understand is, are you going to come in and make my life easy or not? I mean, they don't say that, but I think every hiring manager, and for many of you, you probably hired people, I have too. I mean, that's really what we're trying to assess. Is this person really going to come in and do the work? So your job is to just tell them like, yeah, here I am. I've done this work here. Here's how I can do it for you now. And then just start talking about the work. Don't even talk about yourself. Like, what are your problems? You know, this is consulting 101, right? Asking great questions. What are your problems? What are you trying to solve? What does success look like for you in this project right now? Oh, really? Gosh, you know, I did that in my last role, and here's what I did. Maybe I could do that here. What do you think? Now you're already getting, like, you're just starting to craft the project. So this is a great way to like take all that pressure of a gap off yourself and just focus on the client and focus on their problems that they need to solve right now, because that's really what they care about. They don't care about your gap, they care about the problems they need to solve. So hopefully that some insight there helps you build your confidence and just start. You know what, the more you do this and have more of these conversations, the easier it will be. Okay, how do you calculate your rate from being an FTE to a 1099 contractor? How do you account for additional costs and taxes that brings just to base your pay rate? Okay, this is a very detailed question. I'm going to answer it. We've got some more questions here, and it's 1 o'clock, so if you need to drop off, I totally get that, but I'll stay on for a few more minutes for those of you that want to need some questions answered here. Okay, so first of all, when it comes to rate, I would encourage you to get a great accountant. If you don't have a great accountant, find one. A great accountant will like change your life. And I went through like 4, just so you know, because I had no idea what a great accountant was early on. But this is someone who really can run the numbers for you. And because each of our situations are so unique, right? As far as what we claim, and are we married or are we single, and do we have dependents, and the whole, I am not an accountant, but what I know, it's complicated. And so when you think about calculating your rate from being an FTE to a 1099 contractor, there's a whole host of things in there that a good accountant, especially an accountant that works with subcontractors or small businesses, look for one of those who can really help you think about all those costs. So, at the top of my head, and how do you account for the taxes? So when you think about a 1099 subcontractor, the main differences are really the taxes. And if you need benefits, unless you have benefits through a spouse, you don't have to worry about that. But if you have to go get your own health benefits, that's another big factor. But the big one is taxes. So there's FICA, and I'm going to get a little technical on you here. But in the U.S., there's FICA, which is, I think it's still 15.6%. So the government requires every employee, essentially 15.6% of their pay goes to the government. Half of that the employee pays, half of that the employer pays. Okay, so when you're a subcontractor, guess what? You get to pay the whole thing. When you're an employee of a company, you just pay half, because you're an employee. You pay your employee piece, the employer pays the other half on your behalf. So that's a huge, 15.6%. That's a lot. If you're in the state of Washington takes a business and occupation tax, B&O tax, if you've heard of that. And depending on the state you're in, check your state. Every state's different. Some states have a tax, some states don't. State of Washington is 2%, so that's another 2%. Like, you have to pay that every year to your state. Your local, I learned this in Redmond and in Kirkland, they have local taxes. So what city you're in, you should look at that. What do they charge businesses? Because now you're a business owner, you're going to pop up on all these government databases, and everyone's going to come wanting a piece of your revenues. So make sure you account for all of the taxes is probably the biggest piece. Again, this is why an accountant is so invaluable, because the local accountant will know the market that you're in, and they'll be able to guide you with all those additional costs. So beyond that, obviously you have to buy your computer, you have whatever business expenses that you have, your benefits. If you pay into, you could do a self-employed 401k. It could be another cost. You don't have to do that, but you can. So there's a whole host of additional costs. So, this is a very rough thumb, but when I say to subcontractors, I usually say, you probably are going to take home about half of what you bill after taxes and paying. Now, for some people that could be more or less, but I always think it's a good rule of thumb. So if I bill $100 an hour, at the end of the day, I'm probably going to see about 50 in my account. But again, don't just take my word for it. Do your math on that. It's probably more than you think. And do the math before you start quoting your bill rate, because you don't want to get that big tax. I feel like everyone that goes through being a consultant the first year, until they get the tax bill, they go, oh my God, I had no idea I had to pay all these taxes. So you want to make sure you're accruing for that up front, so you're not caught off guard. All right, thanks for that question. Andy says, I want to accomplish specific things in mass entertainment, metadata, trustworthiness. I don't care if it's a consultant or employee. How dangerous is it to fail to stick to one horse? Oh, I love that you asked this question, because what I've really been seeing, and I think absolutely will continue, is you can do both. You can be a full-time employee, or you can be a consultant, and really it kind of depends on the opportunity. So what I see with a lot of talent out there, people that come to us, is they're open and they're looking at everything, right? Because sometimes you're going to see a really cool opportunity around your area of expertise, entertainment, metadata, trustworthiness. By the way, I love how specific you are. You might see a great project that they don't have open headcount for, or vice versa. They don't have any money for contractors, but they only are hiring full-time employees, right? So I think it's really important to be open. And I've seen people go be consultants, and they've been clients, and then they're consultants. We've had people go back and forth over the years because their needs change and opportunities change. And what's nice for you to know is you have options. Just like we started this conversation an hour ago, you have choices. And so I think in the new world of work, it's not about sticking to one horse, right? It's about choosing where you want to apply your gift and your talent and your skills. And sometimes that might be as a consultant. And I've had lots of consultants that came into this 14 years ago, and they thought they would have one project and go back to being the FT, and guess what? They're still consultants, right? They just love it, and it's worked for them. Some people come into consulting and they go, this is great, but this other FT opportunity came up 2 years later. Great. And then sometimes they come back 5 years later, right? So you have choices in this market. And I think that's one of the huge changes when we talk about the new world of work and future of work is this, which is there's not better or worse, they're just totally different. And even when we talk to companies now, especially now with the pandemic, they have options too, right? They can hire full-time employees, but also they can really bring in experts on demand, which helps them manage their budgets better, get exactly the right skills in, helps them accomplish their goals quicker, right? So both sides have more options than ever before. And that's why back to your brand and where you want to add your value is so important. Okay, last question. Corey says, I've worked for several large companies with a global footprint, helping teams internationally, love traveling, working with diverse teams, different cultures. In introspection, I found that I love to do that as a consultant, but wasn't sure whether I'm unique in this or if there's an established pattern for how this has been done before. Okay, so I love a few things about this question. Well, I have a lot about this question, but specifically that what I'm hearing is you have you're kind of leaning into your brand. I think you already know what you love to do. You're just kind of wondering, maybe, can I really make this work? And I see there's a lot of people I really love this work. Can I really do it? Am I really different? There's a lot of people that might be doing what I'm doing. How can I stand out? So if that's kind of where you are, let me tell you, just lean into it more and be the best at what you can be. You remind me of a long time ago, I had a project manager say to me, well, everyone's a project manager, Lisa. This is a generic title. How am I any different? Well, I said, but first of all, the world needs a lot of project managers, okay? They don't just need one. And secondly, it's you. What is it that makes you different? You're more than just a project manager. This is back to your why, right? And what is your contribution beyond just project management? So for you, when you think about the work you love to do in diverse teams and different cultures, and that's the work that you love to do, it's absolutely unique. And it's really about you believing it and really finding other clients and companies that need that work. And that might be a bit of a navigation and talking to people to learn who needs what you have to offer. But also I'd really encourage you, spend some time on that personal brand, get really clear on what it is that you want to offer the world. Because whatever it is you offer, I believe somebody needs it. So it's just a matter of finding that right person who needs it, but getting clear on that unique value for yourself and how you want to articulate it to the world. Okay, so hopefully that helps, Corey. All right, there's some other comments in here. Let me take a quick look before we wrap. Thanks for sticking with me. We've got 19 folks still on, that's great. Do people see consultants as not working or unemployed? No, I don't know actually if they see consultants as people not working or unemployed. To me, this is about, really defining back to the value you're offering. And sometimes people might have a preconceived notion of what a consultant is. And I think that's up to each of us to prove our unique value and how we're going to contribute to the work. And again, it's back to if someone's not interested, is not interested in what you have to offer, they're more interested in the gap or your unemployment. I don't know, I'm not sure that's the right fit. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of great clients, so many great clients that need what you do. Just keep talking to people. You'll find them, and then you'll be so much happier. Okay, Scott, I see your thank you. It's so great to see your name again, and I'm so excited for you as you're in consulting now as well. That's fantastic. Do I have any specific advice for people in IT who are 50 plus? Oh, we haven't talked about age. So, sometimes we'll get people, and I'm in this category too, right? We've been around the block. We got a lot of expertise, and some people might see that as a negative. Actually, I think that's a huge positive in consulting. And again, this is about watching our own self-talk around ageism or whatever we might tell ourselves. It's back to the value, and just take it back to those success stories and the work you've done. If you have 25, 30, 40 years of experience, that is hugely valuable. In fact, consulting is a great option for you because you can come into an organization and deliver your value so much faster than someone who's just starting out. So take some time to really articulate that brand so you can tell the clients the value. You don't need to talk about your age. I mean, we're all in that. Your age brings wisdom and expertise, and it's back to, if that's not what that client's looking for, then it's not the right fit, and that's okay. So just need to move on to find the right client who values all your unique greatness. Okay, last quick check here in chat. Thanks again, guys. I didn't think we'd go this long, but I love all your questions, and please connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any other further questions, and we will close again on this inspiring idea and quote around let your light shine. You each have that light, and I really hope that you are able to deliver that to the world. The world needs more light out there right now, and so do you. So thank you so much for sticking with me, and please give me your feedback. Let me know what worked well for you here, what didn't, and best of luck and best of success for all of you. Bye.